Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode, we're going to discuss the Wizard, and specifically the School of Necromancy. Understanding the Wizard takes a little bit of time because you gain so many spells learned, and when you level up you gain so many spells, and you have the availability to pick up spells along the way by adding them to your spell book. This creates this incredible wide net that you can cast to pick up spells. Reading all the spells that you want and all the spells that you might be able to use is very time consuming. It's something you might have to consider. It's very important in building a wizard accurately. You have this incredible need for intelligence as your main stat, and that should be reflected in the character that you build. So being smart requires you to be very versatile, and being versatile requires you to pick up a lot of spells that you might not need now but might need further down the line. So it's important to kind of integrate that into when you're building your characters. Full disclosure, I pick spells based on the character I've made, not necessarily the need for them. If I'm going underwater, if I haven't really built a character that's very seafaring, probably not going to have a lot of water spells or things that are going to give me water breathing. That being said, it's a little difficult for me to play wizards because you have to conceptualize the wizard and then understand that somehow the subclasses in the schools don't necessarily define who the wizard is as much as being the wizard defines who the wizard is. I know that sounds a little weird, but what I mean is, yeah, you can join a certain school and have that be your thing. Like if you wanted to be a blaster, you would join the School of Evocation, and that would be your subclass, and you would do things to pick up spells like that. But you would be greatly at a disadvantage if you don't pick up all the other spells that are utility as well, or beneficial or buff-like spells, because every spell that does damage fits into a certain category. Single target, AoE, cones, spheres, concentration. And you want to basically pick one of those, and that'll basically suffice for 90% of the problems you'll face in which you would require damage. On the other hand, being a wizard and having this plethora of spells available to you, you're going to want to pick up things that you might need on the fly or might need. You want to grab every ritual you have no matter what or however you encounter it, because you can just always cast those. But your actual spells and things like that might not be so apparently important are going to be beneficial for you to have in your back pocket and be ready. So yeah, you could be an evocation wizard and just be all about blasting, but it's going to be in your benefit to hold true to what the wizard is and keep yourself into a situation where you have a whole bunch of tools that are available to you to solve problems and get through certain dynamics. A lot of optimizers really love the wizard. A lot of people that really theory craft and build a lot of characters that can solve almost any problem look a lot towards the wizard, and that's why the wizard tends to be one of the more powerful classes, because its availability to do almost anything. That being said, it's a lot of work to really build your wizard in accordance to that. It requires a lot of spell study, understanding where you are, your party, and your campaign knowledge. It can be a great help when you're looking for clues or stuck in an area or a dungeon where you can't find the obvious answer, and you can start using spells that will help dictate to you what you should be doing or point you in that right direction. That's one of the benefits. Again, I like to play a character first kind of a build, so a lot of the times when I'm picking schools or I'm picking something, I tend to try and make that the most important thing to my character, and I kind of forgo those things and let them fall not as important, but maybe very rarely I'll pick up one or two. You'll probably never see me cast find traps or locate object or things like that, because I'd rather have the adventure and do it with the party. And also it's very easy to be like that guy that's just like, oh, I have the solution to everything, and no one likes that guy. It's not fun being that guy either, or always feeling like you have to solve all the problems, and building your wizard like that will probably lead you down those lines. It's great to let other people shine all the time. You know, you want to give people the opportunity to be their characters, solve problems, let them use their stats to do things, and let you use your stats for yours. But if you're too optimized, you're good at everything, and that's particularly not fun for me. And it can be one of those things where it's like, all right, here's a problem, go for it, we'll all do something else, you know, like, and then you be kind of like, I don't like that feeling of being responsible to always do all of these things, because I feel like maybe I'm hogging the spotlight, or maybe we do a lot of dungeons or something, and that comes up regularly, and now it's like always my job. And I feel like there's a certain separation between party dynamics in that, and I just don't like it. So I tend to avoid things like that, so that way, yeah, it makes things probably a little harder, maybe. A lot of the times I think it makes this great group effort to try and solve these problems. So if you're building a wizard, don't feel the need to be everybody else's wizard. Be your own wizard. Pick some things that you like to do. If you want to be able to solve circumstances that most other people can't, then build your character towards that. If you want to be more focused on what you do, say you're a divination wizard and all you want to do is just focus on all those things, then maybe Arcane Lock is in your spell, and maybe you don't need Remove Curse. You know, like, they're important, they're great spells, somebody should have them probably. But you don't have to fill everyone else's role, and a lot of the times when people see a wizard in the party, they expect certain things from that wizard. They expect that wizard to do all these things, and yeah, you're going to do some of them. You're going to be a caster, you're going to be very important for doing a lot of spells that nobody else can do, and being like, oh no, this has to do with magic, what do you think it is? Like, that's going to be part of your kit. But I stress this all the time, don't make a character that has to be somebody else's character's backup. You know what I mean? Make your own character and build your character for doing those things, and let your party have flaws. It's okay if you can't solve every problem. It's okay if your party as a group cannot solve every problem. Those are great opportunities for your DM to put up certain situations that are challenging in that way. Not every challenge has to be combat oriented or time pressured. You know, like, a challenge could just be a puzzle, and it doesn't have to be super hard, but it has to be just enough that players go, oh man, let me just think about this for a second. And if you just always solve everything with magic, you eliminate that idea or that time frame that your DM can really have as an opportunity to do something great, or to let some story fill in the cracks, or let that be part of it. So I can't say this enough. I say this almost with every class. Other people are going to want you to do things for them because you're that class, and other people have played other people, and, you know, with other people who have done that for them the whole time. You're not obligated to do that. You're obligated to have fun, and you'll never have fun if you're playing somebody else's character and not your own. So stay true to whoever wizard you want to be, and it's okay not to be the Swiss Army knife that everyone else thinks you should be, and solve all these other problems and gain all these spells that you really don't have fun casting or want to cast, you know, and just be comfortable, be who you are. It's going to be great. You guys will make it through the campaign without those things, because you have a group of people working together, and it's not your responsibility to just carry the whole group. And a lot of people look to the wizard like that. Alright, I know that was kind of a lot of me ranting about classes, but certain things, they just really get under my skin very quickly, and when you pick a class and people go, oh great, so you're gonna do all this, like, it kind of deflates me, and it's kind of heartbreaking. Like, I'm like, let me do something that I want to do, be free to do that. And I get it. A lot of people tend to be like, oh, well, you should be like this, you should be more so like that, and that's what generally it's built for. Again, that's not me. I like being weird and doing things wrong. Like, it's fun for me, and that's what I enjoy, and I want to make sure people have that availability, and a lot of people don't. So that being said, and I promise that's the last time I'm going to bring it up, let's actually get into some of the things about the School of Necromancy. Now, obviously, if I'm going to play a wizard, this is the wizard I'm going to play. And there's a lot of thoughts behind how you should play it and the way you should do it. And we'll get to that when we get to some of the abilities that people expect you to use a lot, and how I kind of theorize using them. So first and foremost, when you pick this school at level 2, you get the availability to copy spells that are from the Necromancy School into your spell book for half the cost and time it would take you normally. Again, this is one of those things that depends on your DM. If you're like a traditional DM who's very old school oriented, or follows everything like very straight to the line, and a lot of modules like that, this is going to be something that's actually going to be really important. a lot of people play games and they do 1 or 2 quests and they come back and they're loaded with gold. I have never done that. I'm always pretty broke or not ever having enough for any of the things I've ever wanted to buy. That being said, this gives you an availability to use your money as a currency and a purpose. If you're playing a long-term campaign, doing things like this will help you have a reason to do side quests and develop more of the lore and the story behind it. It's really as much as a DM tool as it is an actual kind of bonus to what you're doing. Again, you're a wizard. If you see a scroll, copy it. It's basically what you're going to do anyway. But this gives you help to focus yourself on what you're doing. And it gives your DM a great opportunity to use this, especially, again, in longer campaigns, because it helps pick up the lore. If you skip something somewhere else, it gives the DM an opportunity to add that in there to make a little bit of extra gold just to give you something, you know? Just to give you something that maybe you missed so the story can go a little bit further or make a little bit more sense. The second ability you get at level 2 is Grim Harvest. This is pretty cool. This is one of those real, like, cool feeling spells. Abilities. Once per turn, when you kill 1 or more creatures with a spell of first level or higher, you regain hit points equal to twice the spell's level, or 3 times if the level of the spell belongs to the school of necromancy. And you don't gain its benefits for killing constructs or undead. It just feels cool. You're leeching life from that which you've stolen it from. Like, it's a very cool thing. It feels good. A lot of times you won't think about it, but in a long campaign or a long dungeon or something like that where there's multiple combats and you've taken a few hits, this will help you survive a little bit longer. This will ease up some of your need for healing, potions, spells, and this will keep you going a little bit longer. It's more of a damage mitigation than an actual healing tool. But it's a cool feel. Like, you feel like a necromancer. You feel like death is something that you can weave into yourself and into what you're doing, and that you have a control over it. And you get it really early on, so it's a cool feel. Again, can't use it on cantrips, won't do anything for you. But when you start doing bigger spells, it's pretty cool just to regain a little bit of HP here and there and just keep yourself alive a little longer. At level 6, you gain access to Undead Thralls. This is really the keystone to what a necromancy wizard is. And this is why everyone just dumps all their spell slots into doing this. But here we go. At level 6, you add the Animate Dead spell to your spell book if it is not there already. When you cast Animate Dead, you can target 1 additional corpse or pile of bones, creating another zombie or skeleton as appropriate. Whenever you create an undead using a necromancy spell, it has additional benefits. The creature's maximum HP is increased by an amount equal to your wizard level, and the creature adds your proficiency bonus to its weapon damage rolls. Most people see this and they figure, alright, armies and armies and armies of undead. That's one of those things that works really well on paper when you're just theory crafting it, but it's hard to maneuver around that many zombies or skeletons outside of a scenario. Because you're walking with armies of the undead. In the real world, if you saw a dude walking with 12 zombies, like, obviously everyone would shoot him. There's no reason for you to logically be able to bring these people into towns, because it's obviously in high religious areas, it's a perversion of religions, it's people's loved ones, it's a lot of things that would give common folk and guards reason to attack you. So carrying around armies of the undead, it's great in theory, as long as you never have to interact with another living person again, which you will always have to do. In my mind, doing this would be best to keep the number very minimal. If you wanted to play this subclass, this is something that you need to be able to do, is you need to be able to make your turns very quickly. Because you would be commanding the undeads, and it's the more undead you have, the harder it is to go through combat, because it's your wizard's turn, and then it's like the 30 undead that you use to create the spell. It's difficult, it's tedious. If you're not you and you're watching this happen, it sucks. A lot of the things that I've ever done and I've ever considered and I've given people tips on is the Animate Dead spell gives you the ability to use 1 command as a bonus action. So I say just make sure all of them do that same thing. and just be prepared for your combat and be really focused in order, so that way when it's your turn you can go, all right, all the undead, you're going to grapple this one guy, and then roll all the grapples, and then eventually one of them will succeed or not, but that's what you're really there for. So maybe you want to throw up Cloud of Daggers as your wizard, and that be your turn, and you want to have all your undead just hold someone in that cloud. It works. You can have them standing on opposite sides, and that way the person is just stuck there. It works. It's effective. It's a great way, and it's quick. Making your undead follow the same action on a turn is going to save you a lot of time. But again, you don't want to overload your party with 30 million undead. It doesn't balance out. It doesn't work feasibly. It's great on paper because you just launch thousands and thousands of skeletal arrows at an enemy, and by the time all your rounds done, you've done ridiculous amounts of damage, but none of your party feels good about it. They all feel like combat was just, all right, it's combat. Let the wizard do it, and we'll do something else in the meantime. And you don't want that kind of a feeling, because that's like really stealing the spotlight, and it's cool to be strong, but it's cool to let everyone have their moment as well. So if you are going to play a necromancy wizard, I'm the only guy on the internet telling you not to raise millions of armies of the undead. Raise 1 or 2, maybe 4, but don't really get beyond that. It's a lot for you to juggle. It's a lot for other people to wait for you to do, and you got to know what you're going to do. You got to plan out your actions as soon as your turn is over and try and keep things in order. It doesn't make sense for you to be walking around with 5 other people unless everyone's in an evil campaign or everyone is somehow linked to the undead to have a lot of undead around you. Roleplay wise, it makes a lot of people uneasy because it's a literal zombie that you're now relying on to do things. So really weigh the weight of that and really try and incorporate that into your roleplay, because that's a great moment that your characters can interact and talk about and discuss amongst yourselves. At 10th level, you gain access to Inured to Undeath. This gives you resistance to necrotic damage, as well as giving you the ability to never have your hit point maximum be reduced. This is a cool ability because as you start approaching higher levels in 12, you gain certain spells that might cost you your hit point maximum. Depending on who you want to be and the character you want to make, looking into those things might be in your benefit. I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's cool to have a couple of subjects that are not undead that can do whatever you want. And without the cost of your own maximum HP, you can have quite a grouping of them. Again, that's stuff that I wouldn't bring into combat. That would be stuff that I would want just to build a home and have people collecting money for me when I'm not doing anything else. But Inured to Undeath works really well, especially in dealing with cases like mummy rot, which you probably won't be encountering that much of at this point, but diseases and other spells and like certain undead. This gives you that feeling of like almost like one of them, you know, and it's cool in concept. Again, you're a 10th level caster, so your damage and your ability to do incredible things is done by your spell slots and not so much your subclass. So don't be too worried if this isn't like wildly appealing to you. It's really more so to keep you on pace with power level with everyone else, because you're a 10th level caster. You have a lot of spells that you have available to you, and you have a lot of cool tricks that you can do from that. At 14th level, you gain access to Command Undead. This is an incredible ability. It's very powerful. Depending on the campaign you're in and what your DM knows about undead can vary in what you're actually doing with this. So in longer running campaigns, you can do a lot. You can get some really cool things to work for you and to fall underneath your command. The way the spell works is the creature must make a charisma saving throw against your wizard spell save DC. If it fails, it becomes friendly to you and obeys your commands until you use this feature again. If that creature has an intelligence of 8 or higher, it has advantage on that save. If it fails and has an intelligence of 12, it can repeat the saving throw every hour until it succeeds. In the off chance you manage to have a undead fail the save with 12 or higher intelligence, keep in mind that it does not need to sleep, and you do. So be very wary of that, because you don't want it breaking free while you're sleeping. But that being said, this gives you an availability to put a lot of things under your command. It is not a charm effect, so anything that's immune to charm doesn't affect this. So you can use this on very high level boss undeads. I've heard rumors of people using it on Strahd, and rules as written, if he fails, Strahd is yours until he succeeds on the saving throw. But for the time being, that's enough. You know, get him for an hour to remove all of his armor and tell you exactly how to kill him, and that's one hell of an end of a story. But you can get very powerful undead because there is no CR limit to this. As long as it's undead, you can use this ability on them. You can do a whole quest line to get a powerful undead or to meet a powerful undead and force this on them, and that's wildly incredible. That is a huge boon to your character, and it can do a lot of different things depending on what undead you've selected or what undead the DM basically gifted you the ability to use. DMs, don't be afraid of this. Let them do it, please. It's a great ability. It's very cool, and you can always do something with it. If it's a powerful undead, other people are hunting it. You can have people just chasing that undead down and really have it difficult for your wizard, and they probably won't keep it for so long. But realistically, you shouldn't keep anything for that long that could be that powerful. But it's cool. It's fun as a necromancy wizard, being able just to say this belongs to me now, and turn it on something, or like another wizard or another undead, or just take something out of the fight and force it to fight for you. And even if you, I mean, it doesn't matter how long it survives because it doesn't mean anything to you. It's just an undead that you control. It's very cool. You can do a lot with it. It's really what makes you dangerous in circumstances or campaigns when there are a lot of undead. Our final thoughts. This school of necromancy wizard is a very cool theory. I think in practice, you're better off playing it in a way that's a little more tuned down than what you normally see. A lot of these reviews and people discussing it instantly talk about using almost all of your spell slots in order to keep undead pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping. In a wonderful world where you're going to fight one boss in a dungeon, yeah, great, load up on all the undead you can on the way to that boss fight and just hang back and try and keep them separated enough. Maybe, again, it's one of those things that's going to chew up all of your time in combat, juggling all of them, managing their HP, keeping them going, doing all their attacks. It's time consuming, it's not fun for the rest of the party. I think you're better off minimizing the amount of undead you use, capitalizing on like the summon undead spell, which is going to benefit from your level 6 ability and boost up those undead that you can create, and really work on the theory and the feel of being a necromancer and encouraging those actions and spells and combat styles, so you're not just sitting behind an army of undead, because it's not going to be fun for a lot of people to sit and watch you do that. And most of the people who play this game tend to play characters that wouldn't be too happy to be surrounded by the undead. Again, knowing your character, knowing your DM, knowing the players that you're going to be with is going to be beneficial to any campaign you're in. I like the idea of scaling the necromancy wizard down into being more of a fear-inducing evil caster, where you want to use things like Finger of Death, but you want to make sure you treat these undead as really what they're used for. They're just toys. They're just playthings for you to accomplish your goal, and they don't matter to you, because you can just get rid of them and make more. Keeping that ideology behind your character is going to make it a little bit more useful. So you'll use undead constantly, but you'll never keep them around, so they're never such a burden. You never have to worry about doing all these upkeep for them, buying them armor and arrows and all these other things that realistically you don't really need, because what you need to do is cause the fear in your opponent when you start raising their friends to fight against them. And it's more cool to do that in combat than it is to just, I'm just going to pick all these guys up and send them forward. I like the idea and the theology of role-playing your character and doing it in every opportunity you get. It's a number crunching class because optimizers really love the wizard, and the availability of spells that you have as the wizard just really nourishes that theory. But as a necromancer, don't fall into that trap, because realistically that's all it is, because you're not going to feel like a caster. You're just going to feel like a guy who's standing in the back casting Ray of Frost and just spending all your time raising dead, and then they're just going to send clerics or paladins after you, and it's a whole different thing. But if you're leading an army of the undead, the DM has to balance things to counteract that. And it's just not fun if it becomes DM versus you, and that's how the School of Necromancy, if played the way a lot of people tell you how to play them or suggest you playing them, ends up being. You want to be a necromancer, focus more on draining the life of your enemies, causing fear in your enemies, and making sure that life around you is almost meaningless, because you can play in between life and death with your availability to leech life from death and to reanimate just to serve your goals. But don't hang yourself up on needing to upkeep all of them, because it's not fun. Use mold earth, bury them after you're done, and keep pushing. That, I think, sends this really cool message of the mythological being that your character is, because you're high intelligence, so your emotional intelligence sometimes doesn't add up. Sometimes you're just this wonderful mind, and you just don't care about all the other things that most people would or invest themselves in. Thank you for giving a Spooky Kid a chance, and if you made it this far, please like, share, subscribe.